3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame show. You know, we should have that song start every show. We need...
As an everyday starter.
Yeah,
I love that.
gonna... You know what? This summer, we used to do that, and we don't anymore. I'm going to make that call, and then you and I can decide. I don't know if it'll be something by Lettuce or not, but music.
That's a good theme song, like a show theme song.
You know, since we are primarily focused on college athletics around here, we have sort of a school year type calendar where the summer is time off and a chance to just yuck it up a little bit, and so we'll make some modifications over the summer with the music. We're going to add some things in. And but I would like to have the program start with something every day. Yeah, for years and years and years, Van Halen's "Black and Blue" was the opening song of the halftime show, especially with Haney and myself. And then we've kind of morphed into just letting the bumps roll through their rotation. So that's going to change. That's going to change.
I love a good show theme song.
Yeah. I think we need to do that again. We need to do that again. You know, we've been in such a transitional phase at 107.5 The Game in Columbia, now across our network, which is part of the transition with our family and friends in Florence and Myrtle Beach. That there's been a lot. You get the video going. You know, I mean, you and I have only been doing this for like 5 months together, 6 months, whatever it is. You know, so there's just been a lot going on. You know, I had a kid graduate, you know, all that.
It's getting crazy.
Yeah, it's just been dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, and now that we can finally normalize, we'll come back around to some of that. Anyway, welcome aboard the Postgame Show on this Wednesday. He's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. A lot to get to on today's program. Keep our focus on the NCAA baseball tournament. Carolina, Clemson, Coastal amongst those participating. Coastal will be at Doug Kingsmore this weekend. The Gamecocks traveling to Doak Field in Raleigh to take on James Madison first, and then the winner or loser, I suppose, of the NC State Bryant game.
There you go.
Bryant.
Emphasis on the T.
With
Bryant's
T.
D3.
What are they, the Bulldogs?
They are the Bulldogs. Well done. That's a good primer to the exam you're going to have later today.
Uh-oh. Oh, yeah?
That you cannot study for.
Dun, dun, dun. The Roadrunners, UTSA. Did I get that one right?
Very well.
Thank you.
Very good. That's not on the list, but that's a good warm-up.
It's too bad.
A very good warm-up.
We got John Whittle of the Big Spur, one of our favorite guests. John will be with us bottom of the hour to talk Gamecock baseball. The team had a little practice today. I think they're hitting the bus about, this is a industry term, now-ish. That's the time.
Were you efforting when they're going to get on the bus?
Now-ish.
Now-ish, yeah.
Then make the quick drive up. Elijah and I were going over his route. Elijah will be on hand in Raleigh on Friday, and I was telling him that I've been to Raleigh for a lot of concerts through the years, and it is easier to drive to Florence and then up 95. And I wasn't sure. I was thinking that it was sort of equidistant. It's just you got to go through Charlotte and Greensboro if you go the other way. And then I realized today when I looked it up for you that it's about 25 miles shorter from downtown Columbia. So
you did.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead. No, you
there is a Buc-ee's.
You get to go to Buc-ee's.
En route.
Yep, and
to Raleigh if I take the Florence route.
Yeah, go there. North Florence has a Buc-ee's if you can get in on a Friday.
If the route was even 20 minutes longer that way, I think I still might go just for.
Yeah, but it's not. It's shorter. It's great, and you don't have to go through any big towns.
Exactly.
With all due respect to
nice.
Florence and Fayetteville,
which is very nice.
Yeah, not Charlotte or Greensboro.
That.
So
because I would rather be moving than doing like stop and go traffic, even if say there is more miles on Route A, but if there's less traffic, I would rather be doing that because it gives me the illusion that I'm going faster and will get to my destination faster than Route B. Even if, hypothetically, Route B were shorter.
Yeah.
I'm one of those.
You will, I suppose, need to make and share some video of your trip to Buc-ee's for everybody.
Oh, the Promised Land?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Just make sure you exclude Tyler because he'll be jealous.
That's right. Maybe Ty can just come with me.
Well, say, I mean, if he wants to.
We can take the soundboard, and, because I know he's got some duties.
Yeah.
With Terry's show, but I mean,
well, they have a short show. We both have short shows. We may not even have a show, you and me, on Friday. Again, I'm predicting that we have a very, very, very short show.
Spoiler alert, because we're getting into this here very soon. I've looked at the numbers from JMU.
Yeah.
And just a nice little tease here. I have a feeling we're going to be playing more than 3 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe 4.
I think so.
Were the South Carolina LSU baseball games long, Jay, this past week?
They were, Elijah. Both of them.
Well, get ready. I think it's going to be akin to something like that.
I don't remember the length. Well, I know the length of the Saturday game had like 20 minutes added to it just for a bleeping review.
And not even a review.
I'm not even sure that's a review. I don't know what that was.
I don't think they looked at it.
After 5 minutes, I don't really know what it was.
It's what the hell rule are we applying here?
Yeah. That was odd.
I've never seen that's the wildest baseball game I've ever watched. And I say that with a lot of college baseball
I've
games.
I've seen wild, but I've not seen that. I love it when I haven't seen things in baseball.
And a live baseball protest was the first. That's a first that I've gotten to witness in my sporting life.
Yeah, what's the last? I'm sure there's been the last game I can remember that was, and I better be careful because I'll get going on it. But I think the Braves-Cardinals infield fly game, because Freddie Gonzalez did protest, and of course Braves fans threw all of their litter onto the field, and that took a while to clean up.
Yeah, they forgot how to use a trash can.
Oh no, they knew what they were doing. You know what, dude? I was 41 years old when that game was being played, and I honest to God, might have thrown something on the field, too. I was so mad that night. I can tell you, I was at Casa Linda on Beltline. And
nice.
I embarrassed the you-know-what out of my oldest child, who at the time was 13.
The ripe age for embarrassment by parents.
And now, that particular evening, there weren't tons of Braves fans at Casa Linda, but there were enough, and it was on the screens, plural. And, everybody got excited at first, right? Until they didn't. And then there was, murmuring in the restaurant. I would say like a third of the people were paying attention, and then of that third, maybe a third of us were really into it, if you follow my drift. So like a sixth of us in the restaurant, and it was packed, cared, and I was like, oh, come on. And my daughter's, oh, Dad.
Because your voice raised a little bit. Yep.
That was terrible. And I I know, Dennis, I know you're out there hopefully listening right now. I know you've called before and told me Dennis is a terrific local official in all sports. And he called in with Tommy and me one time years ago, they applied the rule correctly. I was like, I know they applied the rule correctly. It was still a horrible application of the rule. It's like, I can apply a Band-Aid. But if I don't apply the Band-Aid properly to the cut, then guess what? The cut is still going to bleed and may get infected. That might not be the best analogy I could make, but
you're hitting at it. You're getting there.
But Sam Holbrook did an awful job that night. That's the last time I can remember something that had a long delay, trying to figure out what was going on. But sure, a ball 100 feet out, even if you can technically call the infield fly rule anywhere, and then you wait till the very last second when the ball is basically almost on the ground before you go, oh, yeah, infield fly.
Then comes the outfield fly.
What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, the game's going to be really long.
Yep.
So we'll get into that for you coming up. And on the other side of the break, actually, Elijah will have, I don't know this stat. Elijah texted me about 2 hours ago, and I was like, you need to save that. I don't want to know what it is. So I'm going to find out with the rest of you in a few minutes what stat Elijah has uncovered that leads him to believe this. We got other Gamecock things to talk about. Dawn Staley's team picked up a nice transfer portal commitment today. We'll get into that for you a little bit later on, too. A couple things going on around the NBA. I was telling Elijah, I'm kind of, I became last week a Dallas Mavericks super fan.
Yes, and it was going pretty well for you.
Yeah.
3-0.
You know, I mean,
Going into
in the
night.
history of the Dallas Mavericks, I know that at one point, like, Mark Aguirre played there.
A long time ago. Early days of their franchise.
You know, Dirk won a title and lost a title series.
Reef LaFrance played there.
Wow.
Big Reef LaFrance guy.
Yeah, Kansas back in the day. Yeah, he was good on the old Coach K game.
He was.
Yeah, dude.
Dominant college basketball.
Him and Jacques Vaughn on the Coach K video game. That was a fun team to play with.
Paul Pierce was on that team too, wasn't he?
Don't remember if Pierce was on that version of the game or not. I can't remember.
I think they were teammates at one point. Reef was a
maybe Ostertag was also on that team. Does that sound right? As the big man, big Greg Ostertag.
So Ostertag would have been like a rookie or second year guy, I guess, when he was playing for those Jazz finals teams.
I can't remember. I don't know. I know Rafe and Jacques Vaughn, man, was awesome on that game. Anyway. But I became last week a Dallas Mavericks super fan, so I'm an expert on all things Mavs.
That's right.
And they were 3-0 after I became a super fan, and now they're 3-1, and I'm wavering on my super fandom. So
throwing in the towel.
I haven't thrown it in yet, but I've got it. I've got it poised. You know, it's kind of like when Apollo says to his girl, like, "Don't throw in that towel." You know, I'm not there yet, but I'm thinking about it.
You're just ready to fire Jason Kidd.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, those games have been close. That was a good game. They've had some good games. Now I'm pulling for Luka. I don't really like Kyrie, but Kyrie has his. I like seeing guys like last year with the Joker. I like seeing these guys get theirs. When Dirk got his. And for the NBA, I don't have an NBA team. I've said before many times. You know, in the '90s when the Hornets were fun. You know, we went to a bunch of games. That was fun. That might be the only time that I really like.
Fun team to cheer for.
Yeah, cheered for a team, you know, right. And they weren't ever going to win the NBA or anything like that. I loved Dominique back in the 80s, but I pull for players. I like Tim Duncan. I like Steph. Yeah, LeBron is amazing to watch. You know, I like that's the thing with me in the NBA. Like growing up in the 80s, Celtics, Lakers, Pistons, Dr. J, you know, obviously the rise of Jordan. I like players in the NBA. I'm not a team guy.
I think a lot of people are that way because the star power of the individual player definitely outweighs like a franchise's star power, excluding Celtics, Lakers. Yeah, in all honesty,
that's just kind of how I am. But I'm pulling for Luka to get his. That's what I'm hoping for. So
there's a good chance he does it.
I'll continue to pull for Dallas, and I think they're going to win one of the potential next three.
I don't think they blow a 3-0 series.
I hope not.
I still think we are collision course Celtics Mavs.
We'll get into more detail on this for you a little bit later, but if you haven't heard as we head into the break, all of the charges against Scottie Scheffler were dropped today. I did watch the live hearing on a Louisville television station in the courtroom. The DA was very polite about it, I suppose. And Scottie's attorney just stood up and said, "Judge, I've learned that when I'm winning, I just shouldn't talk. So I got nothing to say." And it was actually
nice.
It was actually pretty bold. And then I watched Scottie's attorney's press conference, Mr. Romines. I think it's Jeff. But he had a good 15-minute press conference, man, and he was not kind to the Louisville police. And if you had not seen the newest video that came out this morning, I don't know if that was the final thing for the DA's office, but the cop, not the arresting officer, but the holding officer, is talking to Scottie Scheffler like he's a 4-year-old, and he is absolutely trying to lead him into, he's baiting him. It's bad.
I have not seen that from today.
I watched the new one today. It's about 4 minutes long, and that dude is baiting Scottie, and he is talking to him like he's a 4 or 5-year-old kid. It was bad. It was bad. So I'm glad it's all done, and we'll talk more about that coming up in just a bit. All right, Elijah's going to tell us why you need to take a Vivarin if they still make that before Friday afternoon's Carolina James Madison game. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
Been telling you all playoff long, basketball and hockey, about our friends over at Prize Picks because they're America's #1 fantasy sports app. And look, had some success with Anthony Edwards last night. PJ Washington didn't help me out so much, but that's okay because we live to play another day. And tonight, no playoff action that I'm in on, but I'm really big on Shohei Ohtani, more than 1.5 hits, runs, and RBI against the New York Mets. And you can get in on this too. It's not just basketball and hockey playoffs that Prize Picks has in store for you, but you can also do baseball. Anytime Aaron Judge plays, I usually go more than his hitter score of 8 because he's been on an absolute tear this year. And you can do the same thing. Same concept, just 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch those winnings roll in. Download the app today, the Prize Picks app, and use promo code 1075GAME for a first deposit match up to $100. It's promo code 1075GAME for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with our friends at Prize Picks.
Twenty minutes after 3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the post-game show. Jay and Elijah with you. John Whittle, the Big Spur, coming up here in just a bit. Mitch Light of The Athletic will join us in the 4 o'clock hour with John. We'll get Gamecock perspective on what's going on this week as the team heads to Raleigh to take on James Madison. Mitch has been covering the college baseball season He's based in Nashville, but has been focused on the SEC and the ACC, but we'll get his perspective on things going on beyond what the Gamecocks are up to. But speaking of the Gamecocks, 1:45 airtime Friday, 2 o'clock-ish first pitch, maybe a touch after 2 for TV purposes. We had an idea that this could, of course, everything Elijah's getting ready to tell you, and this isn't about Elijah, because Terry and I said this yesterday too. Everything we're getting ready to talk about is why this game will actually end up being like 2-1 and take 2 hours and 10 minutes instead of what the numbers tell us this game could present.
That's right. A 2-1 game would run counter to every bit of numerical evidence that exists between these two teams and the games that they have played so far this season. But look, if you look at the tendencies and how good both teams are in terms of hitting and how suspect the pitching could be, it could lead you to believe that we're in for quite the long baseball game, and that, Jay, you might get 30 seconds of airtime on Friday. We can say hi and bye in one fell swoop, and that will be the show. Because
if they're still playing at 5:15, I'm out.
You're done. No, yeah, do not stay at that point. Do not stay. They might be in the 6th inning by that point, 5th or 6th inning by 5:15.
If it's 5:15 and they're still playing, I'm out.
Because JMU and the Sun Belt's a really good baseball conference. It has some good baseball. It has some good pitching.
How many teams they get in? 5?
They got
Southern Miss, Coastal, Troy, JMU. Is that it?
I think so. I think that might be it. But that's a lot. I mean, that's
still
4. I mean, that's 4. That's more than the Big Ten got.
I want to think there's one more. But anyway, while you're talking, I'll look it up.
Double check that, because the Sun Belt's a really good conference. And JMU ranks first in a lot of big hitting categories. They score over almost 7.5 runs a game for the entire season, but they led the Sun Belt in batting average. As a team, they hit 300, a flat 300. That is phenomenal. Yeah. They have 5 players in their lineup with batting averages over 300. So they get on base really well. Their best, in terms of batting average, Fenwick Trimble, yes, that's a baseball player, not a Notre Dame lacrosse player, hitting .371 this year.
Fenwick Trimble, I think that's where like the 1947 Open Championship was played.
Fenwick Trimble, yeah. Oh, yeah. Not to be confused with that either.
Beautiful course.
Open Championship course, Notre Dame lacrosse player, 1890s assassin. There's a lot of names. Yeah, there's a lot of things that Fenwick Trimble could be, but he's also James Madison's most reliable hitter at .371. They don't have a ton of power. They got some, and they don't hit as many home runs as, say, South Carolina. They've hit 10 fewer this season, but they make up for it with that batting average, and they're tops in the Sun Belt in slugging percentage because they're very aggressive on the base pass. They're a lot like Kentucky. That's kind of the comparison I've got. They put the ball in play a lot, and they're really fast. They've stolen 100 bases this year, and they've attempted 130 steals. So they're aggressive when they're on the base pass. And if they were in the SEC, they would have finished 2nd in stolen bases this year, behind Kentucky, which is only at 102. Compared to James Madison's 100. Not many teams have cracked triple digits when it comes to stealing bases, but here's the big thing. Here is the big stat that, if I'm a Gamecock fan, might give me a little bit of pause when it comes to this first-round matchup on Friday. And it is in regards to their aggressiveness at the plate. They've only walked 249 times, which is 9th in the Sun Belt. So pretty low. And to give you a comparison, South Carolina's walked 367. So nowhere near they take the account of walks that the Gamecocks do. But they're also 2nd fewest strikeouts in the entire Sun Belt. They've only struck out 406 times this year. South Carolina has struck out 594, which is a lot. It's on the higher side of Division I baseball in total. So what that tells me is that this JMU team gets the ball in play a lot. They're not walking a ton comparatively, and they're not striking out a lot comparatively. They're putting the ball in play, and they have a high slugging percentage despite maybe not having the highest home run total, meaning they will stretch singles into doubles or triples, or doubles into triples. They're aggressive on the base pass, which helps that slugging percentage number go up. And for a team like South Carolina, who just committed 12 errors in their 5 games in Hoover, a team that puts the ball in play a lot is going to scare me a little bit.
Yeah.
They put the ball in play a lot. If you field the way you did in Hoover, you're going to be sweating this bad boy out when it's 10-11 in the 8th inning. It's going to be really, really tough. Now, on the flip side of that, James Madison has a horrific ERA, of an ERA of over 6 and a WHIP of over 1.62. They will give up a lot of runs. But if you want to keep them from just outgunning you, you got to be able to make plays in the field because they're going to make sure that ball is put in play.
Right. Man. There's a lot of reasons to think this time of year, especially, that this is going to trend more towards the long. I think this whole tournament. I think this whole baseball season, as we talked about, with a few exceptions, has just felt more like. Again, it sort of proves that life is a lot more cyclical than it is linear. I'm not saying we're going back to the. I said to you before, we're not going back to the old gorilla ball days on a regular basis where every game was 11-10. But we've had a lot more high scoring games this year, and there's just and whether that's, I think it's like a lot of things, Elijah. I said this, and I'll blend a couple of things in to make my point, but yeah. I remember when baseball was expanding, Major League Baseball was expanding. And one of the biggest concerns was that when you do that, it's not about spreading hitters around or fielders around. It's about spreading pitchers around. And the depth of pitching gets shallower, And I think the same kind of things are happening right now in college baseball where – yeah, Arkansas and A&M have a nice staff, and those two coaches have always in their career. Coach Van Horn's been at Arkansas forever now, and Schloss has been at A&M a few years. But at TCU, he had multiple World Series teams, and it was you can hit, but they're good. They're good at pitching. But in the transfer era. I think a lot, you get one or two guys that might be really good at it, and everybody else is just kind of fending for themselves. I didn't think Tennessee's pitching was as good as the numbers suggest, but you know what? It's good.
And it helps they have one reliable starter who normally gets them 6 innings into a game.
Yeah. But
only have one of them.
Right.
But
that's
been good enough.
That's what I'm saying. Like you look at Wake, that seems to be, those are teams that are more of an anomaly these days. So, but the stat about putting the ball in play, that's one. And, Mark is right. In conference games, Carolina fielded pretty well.
Almost 98%.
Yeah, you'll take that. You'll live with that. But for whatever reasons last week, man, I still don't know. Again, like I say, I think a lot of the errors had a contribution from a mental mistake in terms of what the situation was. And then you magnify that with the physical error. Again, at any level of baseball, I think coaches, managers, whatever, are driven crazier by the mental mistake than the physical error. But when both happen,
naturally,
then it's just it's a bad look. Speaking of the defense, speaking of the pitching, our good friend, good work there. I'll keep that stat handy because that was one. We should go ahead and start putting an over-under on time.
Time and runs and
over-under 335. Over-under 335.
Ooh, and your boy is leaning over.
That's what we'll get it a big one. See what John Whittle has to say about that, too. He, of course, on the beat, the Big Spur, knows all things Gamecock baseball. He'll share his thoughts looking ahead to Friday afternoon when the postgame show continues. Time to talk more Gamecock baseball. Carolina and James Madison will get the NCAA tournament started Friday afternoon up in Raleigh. Game 1 of the NC State Regional. The Wolfpack take on Bryant in the nightcap on Friday. John Whittle will be there. Our own Elijah Campbell will be there. Many of you listening will be there if you can get tickets. According to a listener yesterday, as soon as they went on sale, they were gone before they went on sale. How does that even work? They should just have a sign.
That sounds like theft.
Yeah, well,
I'm not here to make accusations.
I don't know,
but I'm here to
stealing them.
I'm here to insinuate.
John Whittle may get to the bottom of that and more stories before the first pitch is thrown on Friday. Always good to have you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I appreciate you guys having me today.
How surprised were you? Maybe is one way to ask. Or did Carolina greatly exceed your expectation level when it came to their performance at the SEC tournament?
It shows how much I know. I thought this was about the worst year South Carolina could have put a team out in Hoover. Just kind of the way they're structured, the way the pitching staff kind of lined up, the lack of range, I guess you could say, in the outfield, in that big cavernous outfield that they have, and some problems defensively. Like, I thought this was all set up for one and done, or maybe win the first one and lose the next two. I was not expecting a stay till Saturday. I did pack enough for Saturday, but I certainly was not expecting it.
Well, if nothing else, John, and you're a veteran of many SEC Media Day trips to beautiful Hoover, Alabama, you could have always gone to the Belk in the Galleria and gotten yourself a little extra if you needed it, right?
Absolutely. I could have done that, or I could have just done the laundry at the hotel, which I probably would have done and have done before. So that probably would have been my route. But as you mentioned, we've done this thing a few times, and there's some options there.
Yeah. Speaking of options, what are Mark Kingston and Matt Williams looking at when it comes to pitching this weekend? Have they honed in on the formula that they like?
Great question, fair question. I don't know with 100% certainty the answer. I think we'll probably get a little bit more clarity from the staff tomorrow when we have press conferences up there in Raleigh. I kind of think that they're going to go back to a more traditional setup. I think you'll probably see Eli Jones on Friday. I think you're going to see them pick a couple of starting pitchers with the hope and the thought that, they can go out there and be a starting pitcher and try to go 5 innings or 6 innings and get you a bunch of outs. I mean, they've done a whole heck of a lot of things over the last month in terms of whether it's personnel or whether it's placement in the rotation, whether it's trying to let them go or go with openers or one time through the order. They've done 100 different things, and 99 of them haven't really worked out all that great. So I think they're going to go back to, what was working at least okay for a long time this season and go back with a more traditional look at it and go with Eli Jones. That's my guess. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think that's the route to go. Give the ball to your guy, give the ball to your leader, and let Eli try to go out there and win you game 1.
And, John, while the pitching certainly was up and down, I think the biggest headline of this team was the 12 errors in 5 games. Should have been 13. I think there might have been a scoring error on one of those Lee Ellis plays.
See what you did there
on Saturday. Yeah, that's a pun / double entendre. But John, that's clearly something that seems uncharacteristic with this team, right? A team that's had multiple different defensive shifts and shakeups this season, and you're going into a game on Friday against the James Madison team that is really good at putting the ball in play. How confident are you that they can maybe get some of those errors rectified, or at least some of these defensive miscues that they've had in the last 5 games in Hoover rectified by the time they get to Raleigh?
Yeah, I mean, they have fielded pretty well in terms of balls that they can get to and not making errors for a lot of SEC play. And you mentioned 13. It probably could have been 15 or 16 pretty easily, which is just remarkable to think about, that you can go up there and win 3 games and commit that many errors is kind of mind-boggling. But South Carolina's not in a real good place defensively coming out of last weekend, and but you've got a week to kind of tighten things up. And I was thinking about this right before we got on the air and haven't had time to go look it up. Like, Talmadge McCrory had a decent fielding year last year. He had one terrible week where there was a midweek game. It may have been USC Upstate, and then a weekend series against Vanderbilt when he just couldn't field a ball at all. And the next weekend he was fine. I think you got to hope that he bounces back this week like he did last week and roll him back out there last year and roll him back out there at third base. I mean, he's a junior. He's an older guy. He's been through it. He's had good moments. He was on the all-regional team last year. He was he was the MVP of the Clemson series last year. Like, he's had big moments in big moments. And I think that you've got to trust your older guy to go out there and get the job done. That's my viewpoint on it. But from a defensive standpoint, they've got to be better. There was a pop fly that fell in between three players last week in Hoover. Ethan Petrie had a couple of missed plays out there at first base. He's obviously going to be in there with Gavin Casas being out. Parker Nolan had a couple of errors over there at second base. Even Will Pippett had an error. Even Blake Jackson had an error out in the outfield. It was it was a really tough weekend. So those things have a tendency to snowball on you a little bit, and they've got to regroup as a team and get it done.
Talking to John Whittle of the Big Spur, covering Carolina baseball, again, Gamecocks and JMU on Friday afternoon. You just mentioned Gavin Casas, John, and it does feel like we've seen the last of him for the season. What can you tell us right now about what Mark Kingston is looking at in terms of his direct replacement, how that affects the defense and the batting lineup?
Yeah, it looked like Gavin Casas was going to roll over there at third base, and I think it's going to be Talmadge who's going to be in there, just kind of a straight swap. And, of course, that keeps Ethan Petrie over there at first, where he's been starting games and sometimes finishing them in right field. So I think that's going to keep Ethan over there at first base. And he's not a polished, fine product over there, and he handles the ball a lot. So he's going to have to continue to be okay and continue to improve. But yeah, it's going to be tough because Gavin was starting to swing the bat pretty good. And I know Mark Kingston has alluded to Christian Walker and, Christian playing through the broken hamate. And that's rare, man. That's tough to do. Like, you can look at that hand funny and it's starting to hurt on you because that's how painful that injury is. Like, I don't know how Christian did what he did, but hamates break a lot, and you don't ever hear about guys being able to play through it. And Christian Walker was like a one of one. Like, he's one of 1,000 who could go out there and do that. If Gavin can't, he's in the great majority of folks. So, I don't know that he's going to be able to do it. It's going to be really difficult, if not impossible, for him to play out there this weekend or next. But hopefully, I'm sure that South Carolina's hoping for a miracle because goodness knows he's been playing good ball here at the end of the year.
Got about a minute here for you, John. And, obviously Cole had a cartoonish week in Hoover. And I expect him to maintain some of that when we go to Raleigh. And I don't expect that exact same production, but usually this Gamecock team works its best when Ethan Petrie's also having cartoonish type weeks. But what's going to be the third most important bat for this Gamecock team if they want to be able to see themselves make it out of this regional?
That's a great question. And it may be it could be a couple of guys. Kennedy Jones had an okay week out in Hoover. He's been South Carolina's best player this year in terms of for at least over the course of the whole year in terms of hitting with runners in scoring position. He's been a machine from that standpoint, close to 400. Cole's obviously been best lately, but Kennedy Jones is going to be in an RBI spot because Parker Nolan's done a decent job of getting on base. The guys in front of Kennedy have done a good job of getting on base, and Kennedy's going to continue to have those RBI opportunities. I think this is going to be a scoring regional based on the park and based on the pitchers in it. So they're going to need every opportunity to take advantage of every opportunity they can to score runs, and Kennedy's going to have those opportunities.
Great stuff as always, sir. We appreciate you. Safe travels up there, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Y'all take care.
You bet. That's our good friend John Whittle, John M. Whittle, to follow along on Twitter. TheBigSpur.com is the website. Some news on Xavier Legette and what he's doing in Charlotte. We'll give you that when the postgame show returns. 11 minutes in front of 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Thanks again to John Whittle for joining us. Mitch Light of The Athletic will join us coming up in about a half hour. He's also covering college baseball. We'll get a full tournament perspective from Mitch. We'll throw in a little Gamecocks, too. Don't worry, but we've done a lot of Gamecocks. What else is going on in the tournament? That's part of what Mitch will be telling us. Speaking of the tournament, let me make a mild correction to something I said earlier. There are 4 Sun Belt teams. Troy did not make it. Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, are the other. So it's Coastal, James Madison, Louisiana, and Southern Miss. Those are the 4 Sun Belt teams. Troy was on the cusp.
They were close.
The whole time. Skylar Mead's done a nice job as head coach over there.
I'm surprised you did forget Louisiana, considering the tangent we went on yesterday, where you relived a little bit of.
I don't know what you're talking about.
A little bit of late '90s, early 2000s trauma.
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? What happened?
I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know.
I had to do that yesterday.
Now I know, which is the worst thing you could have done.
Yesterday I did that. All right, and now today I've already done the Sam Holbrook game. What else you want to talk about, man? You talk about like a girl that broke up.
I feel like I'm your sports
girl
therapist.
that broke up with me back in the day. You know, one of my dogs died. Like, what do you want?
What's your childhood trauma, Jay? We're gonna start digging a little deeper here.
You start just twisting that knife, man.
Yeah, that's part of the healing process.
No, the healing process is that you bury your head in the sand and go la 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 and pretend it never happened.
Ah, the old deer method.
Yeah, isn't that how it works? Anyway, 4 Sunbelt schools. It's a good league, man.
It's a great league.
It's a good league.
It's a really competitive league.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia Southern came here and won. And
kicked tail in the process.
Again, Troy's a good team too. So anyway, so nothing terrible for Xavier Legette, but according to head coach Dave Canales, they are holding X out of the rest of OTAs because they think he's tweaked a hamstring. But basically, Dave was also saying, and I'll read you the quote. This was after the game or after the practice yesterday. Excuse me. Quote, with rookies, when they come out here, it's a different level of work. It's not that they've never practiced this long, but everyone's fast. Everyone is going. And, of course, with their wheels turning, there's a strain on the brain, and there's also a strain on the body. For him, he looked a little stoved up yesterday. Just as a precaution, we said we need to pull back a little bit, want to make sure we're smart at this point in our program and what we're doing with our sights on training camp and all that. So a little just tweak of the hamstring, and you're trying to keep up. Listen, he's an incredible athlete. I get it.
Yep.
And, you know, he wants to make an impression right away. Look, after all, I don't know how it affects guys. It's up to the individual. But it can't be lost on you that they traded up to get you in the first round. You're now a first-round pick. And whether you're, listen, there's a massive difference, whether it's fair or not. There's a massive difference in being the last pick of the first round and the first pick of the second round. Mm-hmm. The only thing that separates you is a little time, right? But that gap that is the number 1 next to the round relative to the number 2 next to the round is gigantic. And, does that weigh on guys? I'll give you a sort of an analogy, Elijah, and see what you think. But my favorite soccer team, Arsenal, over there they don't trade. They have transfer fees. Like you basically buy a guy's contract.
Right.
Arsenal has a big star that they paid like $100 million for to buy his contract. Then they pay him, like $2 million a month or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, how does that affect him? It's like, well, it's not his fault that he didn't say you need to buy my contract.
They wanted to buy his contract.
And same thing here with so I don't know how these things affect an NFL guy like X. It's like, well, man, you're a first round pick. Hey, I thought I was going to be a second round pick, or I didn't know they were going to do that. how does it weigh on the brain? I think it's up to the individual, but it could be interesting.
It is, especially like in some people when they know they're getting rewarded more handsomely than others that they work with. It does motivate them to work harder because they want to be able to show their employer that they are a good investment, right? Because you are going to be making more, because you are the first round pick, more will be expected and you're going to have to produce more. That does apply a lot of pressure to a lot of players, fairly or unfairly. And I think Xavier is one of those guys too, and we saw it here. Even when there weren't a ton of expectation for him, he still worked like there was, right? The one thing Dow Loggins said all season long was he was never cheating work. Even when they wanted him to take a step back and not go as hard in practice because all the injuries they had, he refused to do it. That's just the type of player he is.
He worked himself into being a first-round pick, so now he's got that going for him. Yeah, so there's that. But he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Nothing to worry about. The Braves, speaking of youth, have made a big move. Tell you about it coming up. But first, let me tell you about our good friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They've been doing what they do for their members since 1936. And what they do is offer you a lot of the same things that the big banks do, but you do it for less money, which means you keep more of your money. Lower rates, fewer fees when you're borrowing, when you're doing your checking account, your savings account. See what they can do for you when you log on to palmettocitizens.org. Maybe this time of year, maybe you've just had somebody graduate from high school, and it's time to start thinking about paying for college, student loans, getting them a car if they're going to be out of town. Roll all of that in. Save money in the process. All of that money stays right here in the Midlands. Whether they're loaning it to you, to the small business in the neighborhood, to your friends and neighbors, it's all right here. And again, they've been doing it since 1936. My wife and I are members. We love them. We use the Millwood branch. They've got 14 locations across the city. And you can always find out more when you log on to palmettocitizens.org. 4 o'clock on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the post-game show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios, downtown Columbia, South Carolina, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you for being with us. John Whittle joined us in the last hour talking Carolina baseball. The Athletics' Mitch Light will join us coming up in about 15 minutes or so. He's been covering college baseball nationally this season. We'll get his take on the tournament, who he's looking at as the favorite, the sleeper. Speaking of baseball, Stuart Lake will be with us tomorrow from Raleigh, and we're hoping to be joined by D1 Baseball's Aaron Fitt. Great interview, if you missed it, earlier today on the station with Mark Etheridge of D1 Baseball. Terry and Tyler talked to Mark this afternoon, around 12:30, I think it was. Does that sound right? Yeah?
Sounds right.
Okay.
Time is made up, man. So I might
true.
be off. Be off a segment or two.
Yeah. Earlier today, find it on the podcast page at 107.5 The Game.
It will be labeled. I do know that.
Yeah, but
we're good at that around here.
Good stuff. And you know what? If you are like me and you love college baseball, the D1 YouTube channel has a lot of fun stuff. They if you want to get into the super duper nitty gritty. They'll do that for you, but the guys do a nice job of covering the sport. So if you're interested, free plug for those guys. Check them out. Just go to their YouTube page, and they got a lot of good stuff.
Their website rules, too. And if you want to fork over a little money, you get some of the good inside stats.
Yeah.
Some of the good stuff.
And I think if you spend enough money, Aaron will send you an 8x10 glossy photo. So there's
signed.
Yeah, it's there.
Then you send even more, and then he'll sing you a Christmas carol around the holidays.
Sure.
When they're not in season. Gives them a little more time to travel and knock on the doors and be able to sing you your favorite Christmas song.
We're all capitalists.
That's right.
Yeah.
Aaron's a good one.
Yeah.
That one I think runs for, quadruple digits. So, I mean, you got to be able to save up for that.
Takes a little bit.
I saved up for it. He came to my house and sang me a lovely Christmas carol on December 23rd. Wished me a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And you know what? A little above soprano, but he's got a little bit of range. It's solid.
We have Aaron penciled in tomorrow, but he did let me know may have a couple of things that I've got to go do. But we're hoping,
sing. Yes,
that's right. He's warming up. He's going to sing the national anthem. He lives in North Carolina, so he's going to sing the national anthem at all three regionals that are in the Tar Heel State.
And that's how he plugs his Christmas Carol promotion.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. In the meantime, tonight in Atlanta, the Braves will have Spencer Schwellenbach make his Major League debut.
Jawohl.
This is a young man who pitched at Nebraska, had to have Tommy John surgery immediately after leaving college. Got himself back into the minors last season. So far this year in 8 minor league starts, he is 4-1 with a 1.80, striking out 51 batters in 45 innings. He was in Rome in High A and then was moved to Pearl, the Mississippi Braves, Double A over in Jackson. While he was in Jackson, he did not allow a run in 13 innings pitched. He follows a trend for a lot of Braves players of late that have bypassed Gwinnett and gone straight to Atlanta. And it's almost now like Gwinnett is more of a holding area and rehab place than it is a place where the Atlanta Braves are calling up a lot of stars. Michael Harris basically went straight from Double A. Riley and Albies didn't seem to spend a lot of time at AAA when they came up. Riley,
I don't think Elder spent a lot of time.
I don't think he did either. I'm trying to think if Riley. It's been a few years now, but I feel like he came straight from Double. And I've said before, man, and this isn't just about the Braves. And look, some clubs I'm sure do want you to go spend some time at AAA before you get a call to the bigs, but. And you know this. You've grown up watching Double A baseball.
That's right. A lot of it.
When you make it to Double A baseball, you are a hell of a baseball player. Mm-hmm. I don't care what position you're playing.
Legit shot to play Major League Baseball.
I don't care if you're riding the pine, because you've made it through 2 levels of A ball. And it's one of the things I was kind of bummed. I was really hoping when they built the facility, that was Spirit Park, now Segra Park, like, man, that's worthy of high-level baseball. Nothing against, look, I love the old place, all right? And there's a lot of charm at a lot of, single-A ballparks across there is. But that Segra Park.
Gorgeous.
Listen, man, there's AAA parks that aren't that nice.
Can confirm. Yeah.
And
it's just as nice as the Nashville Sounds Park.
It is just beautiful. Nice. I love Segra.
That's AAA.
Yeah. I mean, that's a baseball facility.
Yes.
But I was told, and y'all might remember the interviews we had Jason Fryer as one of the owners of the Fireflies, and he came on with us a bunch when they were getting the team going. And from time to time, I still keep in touch with him. But he reminded me, like, Columbia is basically too far from the bulk of the Southern League teams to let the Southern League put a AA team here. They explored it, but basically they were told, it's just geographically too far away, which is...
It's a bummer because the Carolina Mudcats were a thing.
Yeah. But
they were in the Southern League.
Like what? Knoxville has AA, right?
Yeah.
Chattanooga has AA.
Technically Kodak, but it's between Knoxville and Sevierville.
Okay.
Yeah, the Tennessee Smokies.
But the burbs.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Chattanooga's only 2 hours from Knoxville, if?
Not even. Yeah. I mean, it's a split on 40. Yeah. Takes you down an extra hour down.
So, anyway, the I don't want to go into two different topics here with that, but I was hoping we get AA baseball here. But the point I'm making is, once you've made it to AA baseball, you have been the wheat has been separated from the chaff, right? You are now amongst the elite, and especially with the way that Major League Baseball is really kind of, they've had to trim the fat from the minors. There's just a lot fewer teams now, and it is unfortunate. There's a lot of places that have lost their ball clubs, and I hate that for them. I do. I truly, truly do. And again, Columbia, South Carolina, for a city our size, is fortunate that we have what we have, and I hope people continue to support it. I hope that whole area on Bull Street continues to grow. Hell, man, once Tupelo Honey opens...
Ball game.
Somebody needs to offer a ticket thing, like go to Tupelo Honey and get a ticket to the Fireflies, or something like that.
This is a good promotion.
I think they're opening October, though, so it'll have to be next season. But I am excited for Tupelo Honey. But I don't want to talk about food right now. But anyway.
I'm a little hungry.
Spencer Schwellenbach is 23 years old. They've been trying to find somebody. It's obviously total coincidence. His name's Spencer, but since Spencer Strider went down, they've been trying. They like this kid. You're going to make your debut against